Welcome to another episode of MacStories Unwind. Today's show is brought to you by Collide. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici and Jonathan Reed. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
It's good to talk to you both. We're doing this
fun
live.
To be here.
Good. I'm glad you joined me on my show, fellas, because we are going. This is my show now, Federico, and nobody else.
I was just going to
say,
sure.
Doing a quick takeover of MacStories Unwind and maybe MacStories itself. But here's the thing.
Interesting.
We're doing a very special episode today live in our Club MacStories Plus Discord. And we're going to talk about the Vision Pro. We've gotten a bunch of questions from members who have dropped them into a special channel we have on Discord. And we're going to take them live from the people who are listening to us. And we'll go from there. Jonathan's going to be kind of interviewing me and Federico. And if you're listening to this as part of the regular MacStories Unwind feed, you can actually join the MacStories Discord by joining Club MacStories Plus or Club Premier. Just go to plus.club to learn more about it. The Discord is just one of many perks that we have for Club MacStories Plus and Premier members, and it's a lot of fun. We do these kind of live events every so often when there's a big event, and the Vision Pro, that qualifies as a big event.
Yes.
So why don't we dive in with the questions? You want to take it over, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm someone who's a bit unlucky to not actually be able to try the Vision Pro. So I've got a lot of questions, and I've got some great questions from members as well. But I'm going to start off with, you guys have had the Vision Pro for just over a week now, I think, for you, Federico, and obviously longer for you, John. I was wondering, how is it feeling with you now with the fit and the comfort? And using it for long-term periods, like using it for hours on end. You've obviously been doing a lot more of that regular stuff. So how's that feeling after this amount of time?
I'll start. It took me several days, I'd say, to really get comfortable with it. I did a lot of tweaking of the straps. I started out with the Solo knit band, and it was fine as I was setting up the device. But once I started actually working in it for more than an hour and a half, it was pretty uncomfortable, because since it's just pulling on the back of your head, it's pulling the headset into your face. And so it's creating a lot of pressure on your cheeks and on your forehead. So I moved over to the dual loop band, and that's been a lot better, but it does take a lot of tweaking of exactly where you set the top strap and how you position the one that goes behind your head on the back of your head so that it's comfortable for more than, a short amount of time. And I'd say probably the longest stretch I've used it is maybe 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. And I usually, even if it is a longer stretch like that, I'll take it off here and there. I mean, we can talk about, getting up and moving around and things like that, but I mostly have been using this seated. I don't get up and walk around my house very much with it.
So I've mostly been using it seated, although I have cooked with the Vision Pro. I've cooked a few dinners for Sylvia wearing the Vision Pro. I've done the fancy thing where I put the digital timers on the stove so I can feel like I'm cooking in the future. But yeah, I've mostly been using it seated, either on the couch or in bed. The one thing that I quickly realized is that the solo band, the solo strap, is fine for short sessions, but it was really putting pressure on my forehead for longer periods of time. So I have switched to the dual loop band as my default band for the Vision Pro. However, and John knows, so you know me, I've been doing some research on how you can mod the Vision Pro, and I've been hanging around, sort of lurking in the Vision Pro subreddit. And in the Vision Pro subreddit, there's a group of folks who have gone to such great lengths to make the Vision Pro more comfortable. And there's all kinds of wild modifications that those people have applied to the Vision Pro. The thing I am going to do, and listeners of MacStories and Unwind will know that John has a very close friend at a local shipping center. The guy is named Mike. John will go to Mike once again to ship me something. Specifically, I'm trying to recreate the feeling that I got when I tried the Vision Pro in June. So in June at WWDC, the demo unit that Apple put on our heads was a solo strap in the back of my head and a dual and like an additional band on the top of my head. So it was like best of both worlds. It was like a solo strap in the back of my head and another band above it to sort of relieve you from the pressure. And that was very comfortable. So the thing I'm going to try that seems to be quite popular amongst, let's say Vision Pro power users, if even such a thing exists, is there's these 3D printed clips that you can print for yourself or buy from Etsy. I asked John to buy one from Etsy for me. These clips, they allow you to attach a second solo strap to the top of the Vision Pro. So I am going to go with a dual solo strap setup because I really like the comfort of the solo strap, and I really like how you can adjust it with just by spinning a wheel. And I kind of dislike how fiddly the dual loop band is. So I'm waiting for this. John was kind enough to get me an additional solo strap and the 3D printed clips from Etsy. So that's what I'm waiting for. And hopefully in about a week or so, or 10 days, I will be able to report back.
I'm very disappointed that you're not getting the special clips that lets you attach it to a baseball hat, because I think you should become like the only baseball hat dad in all of Italy.
No, I don't want to do it. I'm not a fan of hats in general.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a bunch of stuff there I'm going to follow up on later on, actually. But I'm wondering, I think probably a lot of listeners are probably wanting this as well. What's your daily setup? We've all seen your excellent desk setups on the site. When you're sitting down doing work for MacStories or doing any other kinds of work, I don't mean maybe sitting down to watch a film or something. How are you sitting down? Are you sitting at your desk? Are you sitting on the sofa? Are you moving between the two? Like how does it work on a daily basis for you guys now?
So for me, it's either the sofa or the kitchen table. I've yet to work at my desk with the Vision Pro. I've just been hanging around the living room, basically. And I again, that's a work in progress, because I've been using the 12 South Magic Bridge to sort of put together the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Trackpad in a single configuration. But I am waiting, and this will come tomorrow, actually. I am waiting for these two different trays that I got from Amazon US to put the Magic Keyboard and the trackpad in a laptop configuration. So trackpad at the bottom and the keyboard above it. So I will also report back on these two trays that I got. But because of that, I thought the Magic Bridge was going to be fine, but I really dislike the horizontal orientation for longer stretches of time. So I've just been using the MacBook Air for now as an input system.
So what I've done to kind of solve that Magic Bridge horizontal layout problem is I've just gone with a lap desk. And what I got was a very wide one, which is like 30 inches wide. And it's really just a curved piece of wood that I can put in my lap when I have the Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad. And what's nice about it is that it's just like if I'm at a desk, I can kind of move the Magic Trackpad and keyboard, wherever I want. That way the keyboard's centered in front of me where my hands are, and the trackpad's a little off to the side. And I found that that's been a pretty nice configuration so far. In terms of where I'm working, it's either my desk in my office with a giant Mac screen right in front of my actual Mac Studio screen, which is a little odd in some ways, but it doesn't feel odd since you can't even see the Mac Studio display behind it. Or I'm sitting on the couch in the office behind me, or I'm in our living room, just sitting on the couch watching a movie or playing with some apps in the evening a lot of times, that sort of thing. I mean, I think one thing Federico and I have both been doing and comparing notes between the two of us is that for at least a couple of hours every night, I just sit on the couch and I download apps and try them. And we're slowly working our way through the list that we've got, Federico, what would you say? It's probably like 60, 70, 80 apps that we're still kind of working our way through.
Yeah. That's
maybe more, maybe closer to 100 at this point. I don't even know.
I just wanted to quickly answer a question from Lachlan in the Discord. What about the Bridge keyboard? Because I spoke about like using a Bridge keyboard as an input system for the Vision Pro before. Unfortunately, I discovered once I received it that so this is a fun fact. Apple disabled compatibility with non-Apple trackpads. So if you have a keyboard with a trackpad, and even though that trackpad gets recognized by iPadOS, it's not going to work with Vision OS. It's totally disabled in software. I saw a few folks on Mastodon talk about this as well. So yeah, unfortunately, only the keyboard part of the Bridge keyboard works with Vision OS right now. The trackpad is disabled. It just does nothing.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting decision that they've made there. I think one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about as well over the last couple of weeks and seeing a lot about is the discussion of how the Vision Pro fits in people's everyday life. I mean, you guys are obviously using it every day, and like you said, you've got nearly 100 apps to go through and review. But I'm wondering if you've, and I think even people in the Discord as well have maybe struggled to find a way how it's going to fit in with their daily life. How do you see that fitting in with your everyday work and leisure time? Do you think it's actually going to replace some of your devices? I think, and also sort of a follow up would be: Are you going to be using your X-Real glasses anymore now that you have the Vision Pro? Are you finding legitimate uses for the Vision Pro?
No, that was fun until it lasted.
Yeah, those were good times, but those times are very over. I mean, for me, I think it's definitely cut into my iPad usage. I mean, I still have an iPad on a stand next to my main Mac display that I'm using for widgets and things. But there were a few days where I was having trouble with universal control, and I just put it away, and I really didn't miss it. I mean, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, replaced my iPad Pro. I don't know if that's a long-term thing or not. I think it's probably the device, though, that'll have the most reduction in use over time. In terms of how it's changed, where it fits, I'd say I'm using it maybe about half my day, maybe a third of my day, depending on what I'm doing that day. I mean, if I'm at home all day, I definitely use it more. I have not taken it out into the world like when I've gone to work at a coffee shop or the co-working space that I go to. So far, I just leave it at home. But if I'm at home, I'll use it for a good 3-4 hours. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, it's a nice way to mix it up. If I've had that thing on for 2 or 3 hours, I'm a little tired from having it sitting on my head for that long. And so I'll usually take it off for a while and just sit at my desk and work on my Mac. So, that's kind of been so far the pattern that I've fallen into.
I think my answer is pretty simple. This is gonna be my main computer. This is my goal. When I get my work done mostly by myself, right? Whether it's at night or I have all the afternoons for myself because Sylvia is at class, and my goal is to just use this as my main computer going forward. And that has it's a simple answer that has a bunch of consequences, I think. The first one is obviously I still will have to use a Mac as an accessory, which just so happens that macOS is so nicely supported by Vision OS.
Right.
So, for example, when I'm not wearing the Vision Pro right now, but the goal is to wear a Vision Pro when I'm recording and still use macOS with Audio Hijack and all the apps that I need for audio recording stuff. But otherwise, Vision OS as a better version of iPadOS for me. And that means right now that I haven't used my iPad Pro in a couple of weeks, like at all. And I have started using instead for those times when okay, I'm going to sleep. I want to read something for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, and the Vision Pro is now charging because the battery is depleted, or just I want to go to sleep without having had a display in front of my eyes until the very last moment.
Right.
So I'm just going to use the iPad mini to read stuff for 30 minutes. And it's been such a lovely little device, to catch up on articles or watch YouTube or something. But otherwise, Vision Pro in the afternoon, Vision Pro for a couple of hours. But my sleep schedule is all kinds of ruined at this point. So yeah, that the consequence of that decision is, and I'm already seeing the results. The iPad Pro at the moment is completely gone from my workflow.
Do you think it's going to be easier than, say, I know when you've been using the iPad over the years, there's been frustration about trying to fit it in. Do you think you're going to run up against some of the edge, some boundaries with the Vision Pro that, or do you think it'll be easier than the iPad has been? I guess you've got the Mac as a sort of like the escape hatch, haven't you? And do you think that's going to be able to fill in those gaps?
I'm going to say that it's going to be technically easier because of macOS, but socially harder. So, there are so many times where I can get work done with the iPad Pro in public or around other people. And right now I feel very subconscious about doing that with the Vision Pro. Like I worked one day with the Vision Pro in my car and I could see people passing by just looking at me. And, I mean, fine, whatever. Like I'm the last person on earth to care about other people's judgment, but still mostly like, and I'm not kidding, like I don't want to get mugged. What happens if somebody sees me with the Vision Pro in public and they're like, hey, dude, give me that. Like that to me is the issue right now, the social risk of using it in public.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. That would be one of my biggest fears, I think. I guess that links into something I was going to ask about how it's kind of fitted in like at home. Like you both live with your partners, and I'm just wondering how it's been. Have you been using it around them? Are they bothered by it? Are they sort of interested? Like, have you found it easy to sort of interact with them while you're doing other things? I know, John, you shared a picture with us last week of you watching. I know you were working and Jennifer was watching some TV in the same room. Right. And how's that kind of fitted in? And another thing as well is how are Zelda and Ginger reacting to this? Are they freaking out a bit by this? I wonder if they're freaked out by this, or they're playing with the battery cord, or
Zelda and Ginger totally don't care. Probably because they've seen me wear VR headsets before. And I don't know, it's almost like they know that I can see them, which I don't know, it's just one of my theories. But Sylvia absolutely dislikes when I'm wearing the thing. Even though I tell her, look, I can see you, I can talk to you, I am fully present. She's like, you just look ridiculous with that thing on. It's just like, so for now, I'm trying to avoid, like, unless we are both working and she's doing her own thing, I'm doing my own thing, or we're sitting next to each other on the couch and we're sort of together, but each of us working on our own thing, then I'm going to wear the Vision Pro. But if it's like after dinner and we're watching TV and I got to answer a quick email, I'm not going to put on the Vision Pro. I'm just going to answer that email from my iPad mini or the iPhone.
Yeah, I guess I'm in a pretty similar situation. I know Jennifer thinks that the Vision Pro is pretty ridiculous, and I've offered to have her try it several times. She has no interest whatsoever in it, which is fine, but she also isn't bothered by me using it around her. Both Federico and I both work at home by ourselves most of the day. And that, I think, that's obviously when I use it the most. In the evening, though, I've been sitting on the couch, and it's very much a similar thing to what Federico just said, which is if Jennifer and I are both doing our own thing, she's reading a book, and I'll sit there and I'll put on the Vision Pro and I'll test out some apps. I sent Federico a picture of an F1 race car in our living room next to Jennifer, who was reading a book. And that was last night. And, that's how we spent our Valentine's evening, I guess, which is not terribly romantic. But yeah, it's, she's not really that bothered by it. And I've asked her about the eyesight and whether she finds that creepy. And she says, yeah, it's creepy. But she also kind of gets, I think it does help because I think she does get that I can see her. And if she looks over at me and says something, then I can hear her and see her and understand what's going on in the room, even though I've got this giant contraption on my head. This episode of MacStories Unwind is brought to you by Collide. What do you call an endpoint security product that works perfectly but makes users miserable? It's a failure. The old approach to endpoint security is to lock down employees' devices and roll out changes through forced restarts, but it just doesn't work. IT is miserable because they've got a mountain of support tickets, employees start using personal devices just to get their work done, and executives opt out the first time it makes them late for a meeting. You can't have successful security implementation unless you work with end users, and that's where Collide comes in. Their user-first device trust solution notifies users as soon as it detects an issue on their device and teaches them how to solve it without needing help from IT. That way, untrusted devices are blocked from authenticating, but users don't stay blocked. Collide is designed for companies with Okta, and it works on macOS, Windows, Linux, and mobile devices. So if you have Okta and you're looking for a device trust solution that respects your team, visit collide.com/MacStoriesUnwind to watch a demo and see how it works. That's KOLIDE.com/MacStoriesUnwind. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show.
Oh, I think I've got a couple of questions, then we're going to go to some member questions. And my question, and this is a personal one for me, is that if I were to buy one, I would want to be using it for work. And I'm a graphic designer, so I need good color. I need really good resolution. Right. I'm wondering and there's been a bit talk recently about how the color spectrum that's represented on the screens is less than the full sRGB color spectrum, and how sometimes some colors through the pass-through maybe look a bit odd. I'm wondering if you've noticed much about that. Has it been affected any of the colors on, say, the apps that you've been using, or any videos you've been watching? Have you noticed any sort of not such good quality with that?
Yeah, it's very, very obvious with the pass-through video, because especially as the light gets lower, you see motion blurring when you move, when you turn your head. The colors all look kind of washed out, not like to the extent that they're like pastels, but it's almost like a dusty haze in the air almost that takes some of the vibrancy out of colors in the room. But that said, I find the apps to be very sharp, the apps themselves. It's more of the surroundings that are washed out. Now, I'm not a designer, so I don't know, if the apps are up to snuff for what you would do for design work, but it's totally different with the apps. Those are very, very sharp and crisp. And at least for things like, reading and writing and being able to see small text, super easy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I haven't done obviously any graphic design with virtual Mac display mode, for example. But the pass through mode, like if you need to look, for example, at a physical object and you need to look at colors of different products, like in real life, I wouldn't recommend looking at those, and making a judgment about their color or lighting for that matter,
right?
Just by using the pass through mode. Like it's even in good lighting conditions, like it's sunny outside and you have a very well lit room, you can still tell
right,
it's pixels and not actual a transparent screen in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say that I think is really interesting about apps is I personally noticed right away that there's no glare, because they're not really you're looking at apps that aren't screens. They look like they're made out of glass, but it's glass without a reflection that's distracting you from what you're looking at. So you can create a giant Mac screen and there's not a hint of reflection of your room in that screen. Same goes for all of the native apps, which is a really nice thing when you're working, not to have that, because you have that whether you're using an iPhone, an iPad, or a Mac or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. I never thought about that. That's very interesting. Okay, last quick question each, and then we're going to go on to some member questions. So, favorite Vision OS app so far, one each.
I am going to say, I gotta pick one. So I'm torn between music and things, but I am gonna say music. Because I really like the native design and the fact that they have giant lyrics in front of you, and that you can open a mini player and just put a mini player somewhere in your room.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with things, because although I can't say that I've used things a ton in Vision OS, because a lot of times I'll work in the Vision Pro and then I'll take it off, and that's kind of when I'm checking off my tasks, but it is by far the best design, I think. One of the best designs that I've seen so far.
Okay, let's jump into some member questions. So Roman asked, what's the one thing about the Vision Pro that's regularly surprised you the most?
I am going to say the fact that you can place all those windows around you. I was convinced that there were gonna be some limitations in terms of
Mhm.
like, yeah, now you've opened 6 windows, you're good, buddy. Now, I thought it was gonna be like Stage Manager, and that sort of freedom surprised me because coming from iPadOS, even though this is based on iPadOS, having those limitations removed, I was not expecting that, and so I routinely find myself having 10, 12 windows around me, and some of them are big, some of them are small, and that continues to surprise me, like all that freedom to fill a room with UI essentially, and things you can do. It can be distracting, but it can also be empowering in a way that it's just not possible on an iPad.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that surprises me the most on a daily basis is the quality of the eye tracking,
Yeah.
because it's just amazing how easy it is to navigate with your eyes, to the point where even though I have a trackpad and a keyboard set up, I use the keyboard for typing. But a lot of times I don't even bother with the trackpad because it's easy enough to do the, glance at something and pinch your fingers together.
Interesting. Fedorov has asked if you were to have a magic lamp. I don't know why he has to have a magic lamp, and you couldn't just ask Apple to do it.
Okay.
But he wants to do a magic lamp,
lamp.
and Apple would grant you one wish for the version 2 hardware, and one wish for the Vision OS software. What would your number one requests be for both hardware and software?
Okay. So hardware, I'm gonna say better pass through. Just allow me to see better the reality around me, and tiny text on my phone, or tiny text on food, for example, on the labels on food when I'm cooking while wearing the Vision Pro. So better pass through quality. And for software, I'm just gonna be the boring guy and say, give me any kind of window management.
I will say I would like, on the hardware side, I just like the thing to be less than half the weight it is now, because I think the biggest limiting factor is not the battery life. It's wearing a pound more, or, a pound plus on your head. And then on the software side, I just like to see all of Apple's native apps come over, because we really have a lot of, apps that I use a lot that Apple makes that are not native apps yet.
Okay. Next one. So Marty Day asks, he says that with the iPhone, it was obvious that the first thing that the device needed was an upgrade to its network speeds, and we got that with the 3GS. Some would argue that that's where the iPhone really took off. In your experiences so far, what do you think is going to be the 3GS moment for the Vision Pro? What's the thing that's maybe holding it back, or the thing that's missing that might make it really take off?
Well, obviously the price. Like, I think at that price point, it's such a hard ask for a lot of people, and but that's probably a very boring answer. So I'm gonna say that sort of a following on what John said, make it smaller and lighter. It needs to be more portable and less heavy on your face. But besides the price, because I mean that's literally the elephant in the room.
Yeah, I agree with both of those things. I mean, for me, it really is beyond the price. It's the weight, because that's what holds me back more than anything else from wearing it around the house. And I guess related to that, maybe I would say, if I get a little bonus, would be a wider field of view, because I will say that I have a lot of steps in my house. And when you're wearing these goggles, you lose a lot of your peripheral vision. And it does make me nervous. The notion of going up and down stairs wearing them it's a little, it's just disorienting enough that it makes me question whether I should be doing it in the first place.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Nerdy Nick has asked, do you think Apple will keep the eyesight, because it seems hard to replicate by competitors and gives the Apple Vision Pro a distinctive look? I think that's an interesting one, because it's one of the, I think probably the one thing that's maybe just kind of not taken off or not been successful. I don't think anyone's really had that much good to say about it. Do you think they're going to double down on this, or do you think they might just remove it
I mean,
in future versions?
you can barely even see it. it's very low quality. And like with Sylvia, I tried. I was like, "Can you see my eyes?" And it's that sort of experience where someone has to look, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess I can see your eyes." Like it's so not as sort of visible as Apple would like you to think from the marketing images. And even when it is visible, it's not very high quality. So if that component alone adds a lot of price and a lot of cost to the making the Vision Pro, I think an obvious path would be to get rid of it for future products. Like if Apple makes an Apple Vision that it's not called Apple Vision Pro, but just make an Apple Vision, right? And it costs $1,500 and it lacks eyesight, and it just has like a default static animation, right? That tells you this person can see you or this person is immersed in something. I think they should totally get rid of it. Unless they can make such a leap in hardware within the next couple of years that eyesight becomes that much better, that much more natural, without adding a lot of cost to building the Vision Pro, then I guess keep it. But it seems very hard right now for something that you can barely even see.
Yeah, I can't disagree with the notion of using, getting rid of eyesight as a way to create a less expensive model. But I will defend eyesight to a degree because I think the thing that people discount about it is the fact that the people who are using it don't see it. And so they don't experience it. And so they discount it in their minds. And I have noticed, like I was talking to Jennifer last night while we were sitting together and I was using it. And at one moment she could see my eyes, kind of. And the next moment, though, I turned up the environment and it clouded it over with kind of that Siri looking animation almost. And she said, "Oh, it changed. Does that mean you can't see me?" And I said, "Yeah, that means I can't see you now." And so I think it does provide some valuable clues to the people around you.
Yeah, it does seem
That's
like
a
a really
good
good
point.
idea that's maybe just not being carried out as well as it could have done. I think it certainly seems from those iFixit breakdowns that it's super complicated and probably expensive. Right. So yeah. Matt DeForest has asked, what does FaceTime or Zoom, etc., meeting where you and another person are collaborating on projects via notes or freeform, whatever, look like and feel like? I guess have you guys had a chance to try that yet? Sort of collaborating on something?
We haven't tried. We
No,
haven't
we
tried
haven't.
the collaboration.
We literally did like one FaceTime call with Mike Hurley and Stephen Hackett, and that's been it for me. I don't know about you, Federico, if you've been doing FaceTime calls with other people. But
no, that was the one call. Oh no, I guess I did one with my mom.
Oh, okay.
How did she feel about
that? She told me that I looked older, like I was 45 or 50 or something.
I think it does make you look older. I think it tends to make people look a little like it accentuates like wrinkles around your eyes, I think.
Yeah. So that was the piece of feedback I got. But I do think that, for example, personas, while they have been criticized, like the eyesight feature, I think they're growing on me, and they are. I mean, when you think about it, such an incredible achievement from a technical perspective to just say, "Hey, hold this thing, next to your face for like 30 seconds, and we're gonna build a video game character based on you," and I think after a while you get used to the personas on a FaceTime or Zoom call, and they are better than just seeing a static avatar for someone else, because at least you can see that they're moving, you can see that they're speaking, assuming that, of course, their mouth moves.
You're not like Mike.
And they're not like Mike. But Apple is continuing to improve this. We're getting a better version of personas in visionOS 1.1. They are still going to do the spatial personas eventually. That's the other feature where the persona will actually be somewhere in the room around you instead of sort of being constrained within a box that's floating in space. So I think that's the kind of technology where they should keep building, for better versions in the future. And it looks kind of weird right now, but it's, again, and I think there should be more options, obviously, for, there's all kinds of issues with the idea that there's only one way to capture yourself, right? For when it comes to, for example, how do you want to appear to others? There's no customization. Right. There's no way to choose. There are some controls to adjust, I believe, lighting and skin tones, but there's no other way, like to to have any kind of controls on gender or hairstyles or accessories, or like all these tools that should help the user being in control of how they want to represent themselves to the world. These options should be available, and they are not right now.
Right. I mean, the only thing they have are glasses, and the glasses they have look terrible. They don't look any. I mean, the Memoji glasses are better because all you get are these. I don't know. You get like maybe a dozen styles, none of which I particularly liked, and they're just like this flat gray material. They're not realistic looking. They just look like somebody drew a pair of light gray glasses on your face that don't necessarily fit the size of your head or your eyes or anything particularly well. Yeah. And so I dispensed with them. I didn't think they looked good. And by the way, Federico, I don't mean to say that you in particular look older. I think everybody looks older in it.
No, I do look older though. I do look older.
I do too, I think.
Yeah. And I also think that they should give you an option to build a persona for you that is not a realistic human being. I still think you should be able to choose, hey, do I want to appear as a crocodile with the Memoji, or do I want to appear as a real human?
Because and then you can pick, maybe you're just calling your friends and you just, you're just kicking back and taking it easy.
Why you should be able to choose, because maybe I don't like, maybe because I don't like the way I look, and I don't want this avatar to be like me. Right. And so there should be, and I think the technical issue there, I saw a conversation about this, is that Memoji are built with a different 3D technology from personas. And so Apple would have to redo the entire stack for 3D Memoji. And you know what? The $1 trillion company should do it. They should redo the 3D stack and the 3D technology for Memoji. So more options are badly needed for personas.
Yeah, I think Neil Ann's just said in the chat that personas are in their current state are a terrifying feature for trans people or anyone who feels easily self-conscious about their appearance, which I think is definitely true. And I think it's interesting that they didn't. I think probably what it would have been a good idea would be to have this as the default, and then in the same way that you have FaceTime, we have FaceTime with the cameras, and you can use an effect and have a Memoji head-on. Like, why isn't that not the option, like the secondary option, like an effect? So it seems strange that they would just not offer both. And even if the Memoji is a secondary option, it just seems a bit sort of restrictive, doesn't it, really? Okay, so we are going to finish off this town hall with one last question from Evan, which I guess is kind of a bit of a buying advice in a way. So he wants to know about your experiences and thoughts and advice, I think particularly, for those considering it now or in the future. So obviously you guys are very involved in all the Apple ecosystem. You're involved in tech. But what about everyone else? What about people in the Discord? What about the general public? How do you think... What would be your advice to people? How are they going to be able to fit it into their lives? And if they can, like, what's your views on all that?
Okay, so my advice, so there's a couple of things here. My general advice right now is wait. If you don't feel like you want to live on the bleeding edge of computing, which is totally fine. This is literally a $3,500 purchase, right? It's an expensive device. It's think of this as the Mac Pro of iPads that sits on your face, right? And most people don't need a Mac Pro, right? Most people are fine with another type of device. But let's assume that you're like, okay, look, I love Apple products. I've been saving money. I got the budget. Should I buy a Vision Pro? My answer is yes, with a lot of caveats. I'm already seeing, because I'm doing it, depending on your type of work, you can work with the Vision Pro. Yep. And unlike the conversations that we had years ago with the iPad, you have built in a macOS escape hatch that is actually even more than an escape hatch. Like, I would argue that I prefer using my MacBook Air with the virtual Mac display mode than the MacBook Air with its own display. Like, I agree. I can make the display as giant as I want, and I can move it around, and I can, put it in front of my face or not. And that choice is great. And so the whole discussion that we had years ago about the iPad Pro, you can get work done, but then you got to have a Mac. Here, the two platforms coexist much better compared to iPadOS. So besides the price, consider how, I want to say, sort of sedentary your work is. Like, Do you work in an office surrounded by people? Is your work the type of work where you walk around a lot? Like, do you go on site to other places? Because maybe you work in construction, maybe you work, I don't know, I'm just making things up.
Yeah, or
Maybe
you
you
sit in a
work,
lot of meetings and conference rooms.
you
And that
sit in
kind of,
exactly, sit in a lot of meetings. Maybe you work outside. Like, what type of work is your work? If you have, like, I spend most of my days at home by myself, either on the couch typing away at a laptop, or at a kitchen table, or at my desk. It's a very boring setup. And for those types of boring setups, right now, I think it makes for an incredible computer, because it frees you from the limitations of your boring office space,
right.
and it makes everything. It makes all the entire house around you a potential display. And so,
Yeah.
consider your line of work. Would be my advice.
Yeah, I think I'll go exactly with what Federico said. I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. I would say two things, though. One is, I actually said to Jennifer the other day, I might cancel my subscription to the co-working space, because it was serving a purpose that the Vision Pro is kind of serving now, which is, if I want a different environment, I can just dial it in with the Vision Pro. It kind of gives me that way to mix up my boring office day to day that doesn't change at all because I'm at home, like Federico was talking about.
Yeah.
The other thing I would mention for Mac users in particular is that another surprising thing about this is really precisely what Federico said, is that it's the best Mac display. And the reason it's the best Mac display is because it can be whatever size you need it to be right then. You don't take your MacBook Air with you and you're limited to 13-inch screen. You can take your MacBook Air with you and have a 40-inch display in front of you. That is really very empowering, and that kind of flexibility makes it absolutely fantastic for using a Mac.
Yeah, and I also want to say, I want to add a few things. Lachlan mentioned you need to be willing to put up with constant bugs. Yes, it's a buggy OS.
Very
it's
buggy.
it's very but for a very type of peculiar person out there, that can also be exciting, because you are witnessing the beginning of a platform. And so, I mean, let's just say it. If you're an Apple nerd, you're gonna love this product, because it's the beginning of something new. And new, as we know, is exciting. A new thing is exciting, and especially the updates and the new apps and developers experimenting. So if you are in that kind of mind space where you are willing to put up with bugs, and you find the beginning of a new Apple platform an exciting time, to follow, an exciting scene to witness develop, that's very exciting, and I agree.
Yeah.
And also, I would say that it's a great device for entertainment. So if you watch a lot of TV, or if you just, if you regularly browse through your photo collection and your media library, the Vision Pro makes for a really, really good experience when doing that. And I think, as we'll share on MacStories, hopefully next week. This is a John article, so it's not my responsibility, but there are some really intriguing options for gaming on the Vision Pro as well. So the entertainment side is along with the productivity angle. I think the entertainment one is also very intriguing to me right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, it is true. It bears emphasizing that I restart this thing multiple times a day.
Yes.
Now, part of that
Yes.
is that I am pushing it really hard. And one thing that the Vision Pro does not like to do is take screenshots connected to a Mac with Xcode open. It pushes that hardware to its very limit, and sometimes it just can't handle it, and you have to restart it if you're taking a lot of screenshots. That's something that, boy, I hope it gets better, because it is really slowing down my workflow. Even having the developer strap, it's nothing like taking screenshots for an iPad or a Mac or any other device.
Yeah, I think the entertainment angle is certainly exciting. I think it's something where I wouldn't maybe get it for that, because I would love to try it, but I basically watch all my TV and movies with my wife, so it would be very...
Yeah, that is a thing. That is that is a consideration to take, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it all sounds really exciting. I'm really looking forward to hearing that reading that article about the gaming possibilities, which we didn't really touch on here, but look forward to that. I think we're all going to look forward to that on MacStories in the coming week or so. And I think that wraps it all up. So I guess, John, are you going to take us home?
I will. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been really fun to talk to everyone. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode too. That's Collide. You can find the three of us over at MacStories.net and of course Club MacStories. Just go to club.macstories.net to read about the things we're doing over there as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and you're not a member, go to plus.club to learn more about all the perks, including the Discord where this town hall was recorded today. I'm going to leave it at that, and I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye, Federico.
Ciao, John.
Goodbye, Jonathan.
See you later.